With Factor, you can skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional value you need. Get 50% off with code OCC50 at factormeals.com/OCC50. Welcome back for another helping of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles presented by Bolin Media. I am Ross Bolin here with Barrett Dudley. And Barrett, to quote Frodo Baggins, it's done. To quote Samwise Gamgee,
yes.
Yes, Mr. Frodo, it's over now. And to quote Jesus, it is finished. The strike is over, Barrett, the writers' half of it anyway, the writers' strike.
Yeah, and that and what that means is really just like what we've all been hoping and dreaming and wishing for. The Drew Barrymore talk show is coming back.
Thank God.
And I could not be happier. But no, with all seriousness, the late night shows will be the first, I think, kind of like big things to come back.
To return.
They are already scheduled to come on Monday night, October the 2nd.
Because those writers always work under the time crunch of 1 week, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not even.
I guess
day to day.
Yeah,
they're writing monologues and jokes day of.
That's a crazy job.
It really is. And so the writers themselves, the guild, has not voted to accept this deal just yet.
It's tentative.
But the guild leaders have said, we like this deal. We are lifting the strike. So everybody can go back to work already.
Yeah.
And then the writers will officially vote and ratify it, essentially, probably next week, I think.
Formalities at this point, basically
I
remain.
think so. I believe so, yeah.
Before we get even further into the writers' strike finally ending after 148 days, I want to make sure our listeners are aware of some major updates to our Patreon page. One of the biggest complaints over the years on Patreon has been, it's too hard to find your older episodes. Where's the Sopranos podcast? Where's all the White Lotus stuff? Well, now Patreon has allowed us to create what they are calling collections on our page. So if you're looking to enjoy our companion podcast for The Sopranos, you simply click collections right there at the top of the website or the app, and boom, all 86 episodes are right there for you to watch or listen to. If you're looking for House of the Dragon bonus coverage, the same thing applies, just as it does for Succession, The White Lotus, The Last of Us, and Silo. Plus, I went in and created a collection for our movie club, as we call it, where you'll find companion podcasts for 16 different movies, including Oppenheimer, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, Joker, 1917, Knives Out, Casino Royale, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and more.
Sheesh!
Thanks to Patreon for making our page easier to navigate, and even bigger thanks to everyone who is on patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles supporting our show in exchange for exclusive ad-free episodes not available anywhere else. Our show would not exist without the support of the Clam fam on Patreon. And this year, as a result of the strikes in Hollywood, we've needed you more than ever. So check out patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles today. And for just $5 a month, you will gain access to our entire backlog of exclusive audio podcasts when you officially become a part of the Clam fam. The writer's strike may be over, but there has never been a better time to join patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles and enjoy some of your favorite movies and TV shows with us, as we will still be dealing with a bit of a drought the rest of this year in terms of new TV shows and movies, since so much got pushed back to 2024.
Can they not just be like, hey, hooray,
never mind.
Yeah, it's back in the original. I guess they still got to do the actors. And that makes it tough, because that's the biggest piece of the pie. That's who they really need.
Promotional.
For the promotional type stuff. Like, they need Zendaya and Timmy for Dune. They need Jodie Foster for TD4.
True Detective.
Hopefully they can just dial that one up, pitch them the same stuff they did the writers basically, and get that one squared away pretty quickly here.
Yeah, like we said, the writer's strike was only half the battle, but the actors in the form of SAG-AFTRA, they're still striking. They are, however, resuming negotiations with the studios on Monday, October 2nd. Huzzah. And it is my understanding that since the Writers Guild has hammered out a lot of the biggest concerns related to AI and the like, that pretty much sets the standard for the actors to be able to more easily take care of what they need to get done too.
Yeah, I think the two kind of big things, at least based on stuff that I read and heard, was like not so much like the pay scale stuff for the writers. There was some staffing things and some producing things, but like the two big ones were like figuring out the AI and figuring out the residuals for the streaming era.
Yeah.
And so it's like if those two things they feel like they got an acceptable deal with, it's like that those two things feel very, very relevant to what the actors are gunning for as well.
Absolutely. And here's some of the details around the ending of the writer's strike tentatively, as it, pertains to everything we're talking about. From CBS News, the 3-year deal, so it's a 3-year deal.
Always.
3 years. It outlines a 12.5% pay increase for the writers, starting with a 5% upon the contract's ratification. For the following 2 years, writers will receive 4% and 3.5% increases in the respective years. Then it says, before the 148-day strike, the WGA asked the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, as it is known, AMPTP, for a 16% raise over 3 years. So they got a little bit lower than they asked for there. But in addition to raises, writers secured a 76% increase in foreign streaming residuals. According to WGA, this will increase their residuals from Netflix from $18,684 to $32,830 for a single hour-long episode. Writers will also receive a, quote, viewership-based streaming bonus between $9,000 and $40,500, depending on the length of the show or if the streaming feature has a budget over $30 million. And then, this is big, to track the total viewership, the AMPTP agreed to share the total number of hours streamed domestically and internationally as long as those numbers remain confidential between the two sides. So there still won't be a public display of those streaming numbers.
Yeah.
But they solved this problem by giving the guild the ability to look at those numbers and obviously determine what they're owed, essentially.
Yeah.
Which was, like we talked about for weeks, one of the biggest problems here. And it seems like both sides got what they wanted.
Yeah, to a degree, I think. I think both sides are also likely to come out of this and say that they won.
Yeah.
Because the streamers still don't have to say shit about who's watching what and what these metrics actually mean and what is actually successful.
Yeah.
And the writers are getting their beaks wet a little bit, I guess, based on numbers that they are able to view and are privy to.
But we stay in the dark. The public.
We stay in the dark. You got to think that, look, the more people you let into the circle of trust, the more likely it is that there's going to be a little leaksy or two.
A little leakage.
Right? A little leakage. So I do hope that some of this kind of like starts to trickle out. People get mad. There's some murmur. I just want to know,
Yeah, but then there's just going to be another strike.
Yeah, that's okay, though.
Well, but to your point, it does feel like this is sort of a half measure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like eventually those numbers will have to come out.
Yeah, and it's weird that they don't want them to come out because that speaks to what we talked about last week, which is it like, what you're going to tell me is that Foundation, like 40,000 people are watching it every month, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I genuinely believe that is the concern of these big studios. It's related to stock price.
Yeah,
and if they see that the influence is way lower than they're making it look,
and investors are going to be like, "What the fuck are you doing making TV? Like, stop this."
Yeah, why did you spend $300 million on this season that 300,000 people watched or whatever? So
yeah.
I mean, I'm not positive. Foundation is a weird example because it just, in general, I have no feel for how many people watch Apple TV. Like, I know that there's a lot of different shows that it seems the like our audience, who are big time TV viewers, seem to be aware of and watching on some level. But in terms of the mainstream audience,
well, I was talking about this with Laura, right? And we're going to get to Foundation in the second half of the episode, obviously. But like outside of Ted Lasso and I guess Severance for like the real heads, for the real, TV heads.
What's the news one? The news show, though?
The morning show?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's what I was going to say is that like Apple TV shows are not buzzy. Like they do not demand conversation.
Yeah, not a lot of like social media. Oh my God.
They don't like outside of Ted Lasso, like have any of them, and I'm probably forgetting something here, but like off
I mean, Severance is the one we always forget.
Right, what I just mentioned that.
Oh,
one.
okay, sorry.
Yeah. Off the dome, like the only true zeitgeist show from Apple is Ted Lasso, right?
Yeah. I'm in terms of what I refer to as the mainstream, and when I say that, I mean
That's right.
it hits like the largest possible TV audience. I think you're correct. I think
like
that
you
is
go
their
to dinner with
biggest hit.
people, or you go to your office, and people are talking about this show.
Yeah.
Silo a little bit had that. Like people were talking about Silo.
Yeah, for sure, but it was still.
But
it wasn't like I wouldn't
Hijack
say
kind of entered the chat a little bit, but like, yeah, I don't know. It just something about Apple TV Plus. Like the shows just don't. They haven't had anything that has like completely, just like outside of Ted Lasso again.
like that you have to watch this.
Yeah, right.
That everybody knows.
Yeah,
this is one of the best shows of the year or ever.
Yeah,
and you've got to go watch it. And yeah, certainly Ted Lasso was one that, I mean, you heard references to it everywhere. Like it became part of that pop culture zeitgeist that really lets you know you have hit a freaking home run.
Right.
Or a grand slam, I guess, if you want to. Sports. To get back to a little bit of the detail here in the agreement from CBS News related to the writer's strike, the WGA, it says one of the final sticking points that led to the historic strike stemmed from implementing artificial technology. And now I'm going to switch back to me using my own words. Obviously, there was a ton of concern because AI has been probably overall the buzziest conversation point in general, even outside of the entertainment industry in 2023. And we finally reached that weird point of dystopian point where it's like, oh, we're not even going to need writers anymore. We'll just feed all of the prior existing TV shows into the AI machine,
right,
and it'll write us all of the shows we need. So writers were obviously concerned about job security, right? And the argument from the writer's side is always and will always be, computers don't have childhood trauma. AI doesn't have childhood trauma. It can't It can't
but
be
it can
that
learn
creative.
Childhood trauma.
See, that's where it gets a little dicey, right?
know?
So it says, back to the article, at first writers wanted protection while the studios rejected the idea and only countered with an annual meeting to, quote, discuss advancements in technology. Which was
funny.
That's terrible. Now the two sides have established a set of guidelines regulating the use of AI in NBA covered productions. So first, AI cannot write or rewrite any literary material, and AI-generated material cannot be considered source material under this current deal. So they can't be like, the idea for this new show came from AI, and now you're going to have to work, basically like AI is the showrunner, and you're going to write under that. It also says the WGA said this would prevent the material from undermining credits or other rights granted to writers. However, the rules do not bar writers from using AI to help with their work if the company allows it and if they follow its policies. Furthermore, the studios cannot require a writer to use AI software. And finally, go ahead.
I was just one of the things was like because if the AI created the show, then they don't owe anybody like the story writing credit, right? Like they can, like,
and the residuals tied to
they
it.
can cheat it a little bit.
Yeah.
If the
loophole.
If like you said, if basically the origin of the concept of the idea comes from AI.
Yeah. It also says studios must also inform writers if any of the materials they receive are AI generated or contain AI generated material. I'm not sure how those two things are different, but they needed to be specified. AI generated versus containing AI generated material.
You just got to cover all your bases. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Legal speak.
You probably should have thrown one more, like a third clause in there, just to really,
hammer it home. Finally, the WGA, quote, reserves the right to assert that exploitation of writers' material to train AI is prohibited by NBA or other law, which was the last big piece of the AI pie there, that writers wanted to make sure, like, well, I don't want to just if I'm going to keep writing and you're going to use my writing to teach the learning technology here how to replace me one day, then what the hell am I doing? And I'm screwing all the future generations of writers, right? So that all sounds like some great first steps. I think the concern longer term remains, and look, it's a 3-year deal.
Which they always are.
Yeah,
by the way.
apparently that's always the case. And who the hell knows where AI is going to be in 2026 or 27, whenever this expires. And I still think that if you're writing in Hollywood, that's probably your biggest long-term concern.
Yeah, what I find so unfortunate about it is that in late-stage capitalism, like, we even have to worry about other people in high-powered positions and in executive roles being like, I'm going to replace my writers with AI.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that just sound like an awfully bad faith? You want a
very much
machine
so.
to write the shows instead of actual humans? I don't know.
They took our jobs.
Maybe I should be applying that to everything, but it's like, it's just so much different than having like a robot put a car together instead of a human.
Well, I think it's just the
You know
most.
what I mean? Like you're like, not only is that a money-saving driver, but it's like you're replacing like human air. You're making things more efficient. You can save, and like there's just a bunch of, there's like actual things. Like when you get into like the creative world, and again, maybe this is a bad look for me saying like creatives are more important than like blue-collar workers, but like it's shitty that people that like they even have to be worried in that industry about getting replaced by a robot.
I mean, I think your point stands, and I think there is a learning moment in there for all of us, right? Because for me, same thing. Like, it's such a bigger red flag for me when like creatives, that it's so much more like grossly offensive when they're like, we don't even need people to write stories anymore. We'll just get the computer to do it. We don't even have to pay the people. The computer is free. Like, that's so obviously a massive error in judgment and just out of pure greed. But yes, it's a problem everywhere, right? In a ton of different industries, and I think Hollywood just serves as sort of like the ultimate like mirror for society for like where we're at, and we're not in a good place. I mean, it's a huge problem. Like, technology in general replacing human labor has been a problem for years and years and years and years, and now we've hit like the ultimate precipice where it's like, people become useless if we can just do everything with computers, with AI.
Right.
How are we supposed to make money? And when it's creatives, it definitely pisses me off a lot more, because just conceptually, like, this is the thing. I'm saying it can't be done. You can't replace human beings, storytellers, with computers until they do it.
Yeah.
Until they crank out one badass movie that's
I don't know.
AI
Did
generated.
you hear the AI generated Drake song? Because that shit slapped.
I listened to it again yesterday just to remind myself, and it went extremely hard.
Yeah.
And that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, that is not that for me. I was like, this is a huge problem for the music industry when that happened. The same thing applies on the Hollywood side of things when, like, the first time they pump out an AI-generated TV show that crushes and reaches that mainstream audience you and I are talking about, that everybody loves and everybody knows you gotta watch, and it will also have the buzz of like, and it was written by AI. We're done. Like, it's over. Like,
we are all going to be just on the streets with our phones propped up on tripods, being NPCs, just eating glizzies and saying catchphrases.
Ice cream so good. Yeah, we're screwed at that point. Like, it's over.
And the funny and it'll be the machines that we're entertaining. They're going to be the ones giving us tokens and coins for saying hot dog glizzy. Thanks for 57 glizzies.
For everyone who doesn't know what we're referencing, the NPC TikTok trend is like another sign of just the overall decay of human society.
You
that is
can
alarming.
walk down the street in New York City now, and see people like on the street with their phone up on like a windowsill or whatever doing this.
Yeah,
like it's like it's a plague almost.
Yeah, it's really bad, and I mean, it's the great irony for me. Probably the highest level of irony with all this is that the thing that made me aware that longer term, worrying about AI and technology and a machine takeover was going to be a thing was movies. Like Terminator. Like, I watched Terminator and went, oh shit, yeah, nah, I'm glad I won't be alive in the year 3700.
Right.
And then it happened in my lifetime. In my lifetime, we went from James Cameron making T2 and everybody being like, damn, that will be wild in 2,000 years when we got to be concerned about the fucking robots, to, oh shit, it's now.
No, if the U.S. government loses another F-35 in like 10 years, you got to think that AI will be at a place where it can just take over that F-35, just like in Mission Impossible 7, Part 1, Dead Reckoning?
Dead Reckoning, there you go, yeah. Which you and I watched and covered on, I believe that was a public episode that we covered that here, right?
Yeah.
No, it was the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw the F-35 news. I was like, oh yeah, of course AI is going to take that thing and just start bombing us, right? We're in a very strange place where deals like this, like, it makes me feel a little bit better that they got something done.
They got something,
But longer term, I still think it'll be a huge, huge problem. And the further they train these AI machines to be able to replicate human creativity, that's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going to suck. It's going to be a huge thing long into the future, you have to imagine. So anyway, to get back to the positive, for the next 3 years, we are solid in terms of the Writers Guild of America.
Human writers.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the part where it's like dependent on the company that they're doing this for and their policies, that the writers can use AI software. Because I don't really understand that, like how it gets credited. Like, so if you're a writer and they're like, all right, you're in charge of writing episode 3, you just like plug into the AI where you're at in the season and what's happened so far, and it like cranks out episode 3 for you, and you don't even have to work. That just, I don't know. This is why I say it's going to be a problem long into the future. But again, for now, 3 years, deal done. Writers are back to work as of yesterday at 12:01 a.m. They all did a bunch of cocaine and got back to it. And next Monday, this upcoming Monday, October 2nd, SAG-AFTRA will head back into the old deal-making room with the studios, and hopefully my assumption is that by the end of next week, we should be all of the way done with this shit and not have to talk about it for a few more years, which frankly, we're all happy about that.
IATSE, the union that is all the crew members, is next year. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, damn, really?
Yeah.
Great. Great. Hopefully it doesn't require a strike for them to get their next deal done.
Hey, I mean, and also, like, that's one thing. AI, I don't, like, well, no, I'm wrong.
Yeah,
AI could
just put them in robots, man.
AI could totally hold a boom, couldn't it? Yeah.
Point the camera, longer term.
I don't think it can apply makeup yet. I don't think there's like an AI hair and makeup.
That will take the longest probably, right? Because that's a gentle touch.
Yeah,
yeah. That's it's like painting.
AI, it doesn't have the soft hands yet.
No,
you know,
doesn't have soft enough hands, Barrett. That's the thing.
Can't catch an egg.
All right, moving on. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs makes the most comfortable and versatile shorts, pants, and bathing suits in the entire world. I've been wearing Bird Dogs for several years now. They can't be beaten. You can wear them to sleep, to do yard work, to work out, to go swimming, to play basketball, pickleball, any ball. Wear them to do everything. They fit great, they feel great, they look great. They're just great shorts. I would argue the greatest. And all their designs, of which there are many, all have funny names like Art Fartknockers, Duffy the Vampire Slayers, Uncle Bucks, Teddy Rubskins, Forest Pumps, Marco Pool Boys, and I would note none of these names were generated by AI.
That's nice.
If you want to look like money while you're working in the yard, swimming at the pool, or wherever you go, Bird Dogs are the move, friend. And their pants are great for the golf course this fall, or the office, or going out to dinner, or hitting the bars. They look great. No one will have any idea you are as comfortable as you are. And now they've also got great-looking polo shirts that are just as comfortable as the shorts and pants. Click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/dragon and enter code DRAGON at checkout, and they will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order like the one you see in front of me if you're watching on YouTube. birddogs.com/dragon. Use code DRAGON at checkout. One more time, birddogs.com/dragon. Code DRAGON. In sad news, Barrett.
Yes.
Sir Michael Gambon? Gambon. How would you pronounce that? Gambon? Gambon?
Gambon.
Gambon?
Michael Gambon.
Michael Gambon. The dude who played Dumbledore in 6 of the Harry Potter movies. He passed away at age 82. He took over the role of Albus Dumbledore following the death of actor Richard Harris. Now, Barrett is a bona fide Harry Potter head, whereas I am more of a...
An adoptive?
I'm a bandwagon guy here. Because I read one of the books as a kid, and then I've watched the movies like 100 times.
Yeah,
but
well, you're a Harry Potter fan.
I'm a Harry Potter fan, but I'm also just a I'm a person who likes to have a comforting film on the TV at night that they've seen 100 times, and that Harry Potter is one of mine that I go to.
So you don't. We've got some friends that like very, very strongly are like Michael Harris or Richard Harris, excuse me, is my Dumbledore.
Yeah,
they did not like Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. I do not share that sentiment. Richard Harris was great. Loved Gambon as well. He did great work as Dumbledore, in my humble opinion. So it's going to start happening. This is very sad but like the Harry Potter films, which were filmed longer than you think, like longer ago than you really realized, most likely.
Yeah.
Like I think that first one came out in what, like 2004?
2001?
2001, yeah.
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 Second one was 2004.
Yeah.
So second one was 2002. Third one was 2004.
Right. So we're 2 decades removed from like the original, those initial films basically, and they cast pretty much every old British actor that was working at the time, and they are now starting to pass, and it's frankly upsetting.
Yeah. You and I there's like a bunch of benchmarks,
but like that's Hagrid and Dumbledore now.
Yep.
And
Snape.
And Snape.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
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 There's a bunch of benchmarks that let you know, like, hey, you're no spring chicken anymore. One of them is when you're a sports fan and all the athletes start to be younger than you.
Like every single one.
Then there's one as a sports fan where you start to see the children of athletes you grew up watching. Like most recent example for me is Marvin Harrison Jr. on Ohio State. I was like, what? that you're just like, wow, I am old. And then this is one as far as like the entertainment world where beloved character actors that you grew up with start to pass away, and it sucks. It was always really interesting to me, but that's how it goes being a human. It was always, which is an argument for AI. It was always really interesting. It was always really interesting to me that people, hardcore Harry Potter fans, got so into that whole like Dumbledore, who was the better Dumbledore debate.
Right.
Now, I obviously understand as a huge entertainment consumer that when you become super attached to a character, it is difficult, no matter who replaces them, to latch on to the replacement like you did the original. Mm-hmm. That being said, I've watched these movies, like I said, 100 times. And the fall off, if there is any, is very minimal, unnoticeable. I'll read you a bit from this NPR article about Michael Gambon's passing. It says, he brought a different tenor to the role, one intentionally disparate from the character's portrayal in the original books. In 2009, he told the LA Times that since he was dealing with the screenwriter's words, he saw, quote, no point in reading the books, end quote. I love that honesty. I love that. He was like, why would I do all that reading? And that's how I feel about the movies. I'm like, why would I do all that reading? The movies are right here. It also says he was an admirer of Rowling's work, but that wasn't his top priority as an actor. Quote, I didn't do Harry Potter because she wrote it. I did it because I wanted the money. And I also love that honesty. That's great.
When are these quotes coming from?
The second one, the one about why he did the movies, I believe is also from that 2009
okay,
LA
so
Times article.
Now they weren't done. Were they done with the movies at that point? I don't think so. No. I think like Deathly Hallows came out like early 2010s.
Yeah, there was one in 2009, one in 2010, one in 2011. To close out the series.
That's interesting though. Maybe that's what I feel like the debate, the divisiveness predates those quotes, but
yeah, that was early on.
They're not those are not the most endearing quotes for Harry Potter fans. I would imagine.
Not if you were trying to appease the masses, right? Which is why I say I appreciate the honesty, but I do think he crushed the role. Yes, it was slightly different, but I mean, like if you're not really, really paying attention, like you almost don't even notice.
Does it say what like the differences like specifically were?
No, like, just that he brought a slightly different tenor.
Okay, yeah. Richard Harris had the very kind of soft like old man thing going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think Gambon's Dumbledore was a little bit more biting, like a little bit more like snappy and kind of with it, but I think that worked for the movies.
Well, I especially think it worked because as the movies progress, you get to the last couple three there where it gets dark. And his character takes a darker turn.
Yes.
There's
kind of a split between Dumbledore and Harry for a while.
Yeah, like that one film where he's straight up ignoring Harry.
Yeah.
That one always, every time I get to that one in my rewatch, look at me. he fucking freaks out and he does like he's got the whole Voldemort look going on his face thing, and they like screwed with his neck or something.
Giving me chills, man.
Yeah. But I think that differentiation was good. That gave him, you could really tell something was off with Dumbledore when it came down to it in those last few movies. So, look, it's one of the biggest characters ever in storytelling, right? Between the books and the films. And I always am super jealous of these dudes, these British actors and musicians who get that coveted Sir title.
Yeah. Did he get it?
Yeah.
Sir Michael Gambon?
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. Like Sir Elton John, you know?
Yeah.
Sir Paul McCartney.
Sir Paul McCartney.
All the Beatles, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least a couple of them. Anyway, great actor.
Yeah.
Great work. Great legacy. And now he's gone. Rest in peace.
Harry Potter movies, they'll hit different this fall and winter holiday season.
They will, as everybody goes back into that rewatch as is tradition.
As is tradition.
Every holiday season, Barrett. In other news, I finished season 1 of Foundation on Apple TV Plus, and it sounds like Barrett actually started it.
I did. I'm already 3 episodes in. The way that I have taken to this show, after weeks of saying that I was never going to watch Foundation.
Yeah, you straight up called it out before I even had considered it. You were like, no, I'm not going to watch Foundation. That may have been the thing that actually pushed me to go look back into it. I was like, what?
The way that I have taken to the show and the way that it's engaged me has served as some real proof that I cannot ever go back to the Wheel of Time. And that's sad. I know there were some supporters of that. But I'm offering now our listeners as a condolence prize Foundation, because this show is good and it's very, very, very engaging. The subject matter is pretty cerebral, and I have heard this show described as dense. I don't disagree, but in a really, really cool way. And if you like fantasy, if you like sci-fi especially, I think you will really, really gravitate towards this show. I can think of a whole number of things. It's actually kind of bracing and shocking how much of this show looks borrowed from Star Wars, and a lot of it's like visual language and the way
the galaxy
setup, and the way that there's the Imperial Force, and an Emperor, and like all this kind of like they're doing the 2 moons thing on a bunch of different planets.
Right.
Like it borrows a ton from Star Wars.
Well, let me stop you before you offend anybody, because one of our listeners on Patreon actually commented that their reasoning for wanting to go watch Foundation was that it was their understanding that Foundation actually inspired a lot of Star Wars.
So also true. And I was
sorry.
about to. Well, so yes, I agree with all that. So Foundation is based on a series of books, very famous series of books, the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, who's largely considered like one of the godfathers of sci-fi, basically. Yeah. Like these books came out in the 1950s.
51, 52, 53, I think.
Yes. So yes, I do think that George Lucas in writing and building out Star Wars was very inspired by this series of books.
Yeah, he probably read this, went, wow, that's too complicated. I'm going to dumb it down like crazy. And then that's how Star Wars came to be.
Yeah, and this is, and don't get me wrong, like the comparison to Star Wars is a lot in like some of the terminology and the visuals. The story itself and like the kind of complexity of it is nowhere near Star Wars. It actually reminds me of more of things like Arrival, or
but just wait. That complexity, it gets there.
Yeah.
You're 3 episodes deep on Foundation right now, right?
You're saying they dialed down the complexity?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you saying Foundation is much more complex than Star Wars?
Yes.
Okay, no, sorry. I thought you were saying the reverse.
No,
and I was like, whoa,
I was
dude.
saying my comparison to Star Wars is only in some of the terminology and the visuals and like the setup,
the galactic
setup, and not in the storytelling, because I was saying this is way more like dense and complex and reminds me more of things like Arrival or other kind of like headier sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And through 3 has a very, very cool concept going on. You really like, it really sucks you into like wanting to know things. There are some real mysteries going on. And I'll just say this: like, watch the first two in it doesn't have to be one sitting, but like back to back, night to night, within a few days of each other, because
So that it's fresh. Yeah.
so that it's fresh. Because, and I don't want to get I want to pitch this. I want to say this because it's a good pitch for people that are not watching Foundation yet. But like, the show is going to tell you that it's one thing, and then after two episodes, you're going to be like, I don't know what this show's about.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of head fakes and kind of like trips you a little bit. And at the end of the second episode, there's just a huge what the fuck moment. And now I'm pretty sure that the rest of season one is, I think we're going to get back to that original kind of conceit, but it's going to take a minute while they tell some other pieces of the story. Anyway, I'm very, very much enjoying this show. I imagine that I will be making quick work of season one, and then I don't know. We might need to cover season two a little bit more in depth, because there's a lot to talk about and dissect in the show.
Yeah, it would be perfect for podcasting in terms of the amount of discussion points it gives us. I would note I've been playing the video game Starfield from Bethesda, which recently came out. Starfield is the name. And when I started watching Foundation, I was like, oh, well, they just ripped all the visuals from this. And they really did. Like, I don't know if Starfield's been in production for like a decade or something crazy like that, but like, it just coincidentally, like the look of the ships is exactly the same.
Right.
The look of a lot of, like, you visit these little planets with like, colonies on them.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar look on Starfield, the video game. But just to further the pitch for y'all, if you haven't watched Foundation, again, it's on Apple TV Plus. Here's a synopsis. A complex saga of humans scattered on planets throughout the galaxy, all living under the rule of the Galactic Empire. Dr. Harry Seldon and his loyal followers attempt to preserve their culture as the galaxy collapses around them. And Barrett used the word complex as well. It's definitely the right word. Like, it is a visually awesome show, but it is extremely complicated. It only gets more complicated the further you get into it. Like, I'm 4 episodes into season 2 now. And,
you are really going quickly.
Yeah. I mean, because it does such a good job of hitting you with those, like, not really cliffhangers. It's not like Silo, where they would be like, here's a big moment, cut the screen to black.
Right.
It's clever. It's intelligently done, where it's giving you something that just gets you excited to watch the next one. And so I've also been sick for the entire month of September, so it's been easy for me to kind of blast through these things. But it's complex because, like, season 1 covers something like 100 years or some crazy shit when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
And like the one thing, just to, pick a couple of nits here, every time I feel like the show has gained massive momentum with the characters I'm enjoying on the screen, there is some rug pulling that occurs. It's like you keep it just kind of happens repeatedly throughout the course of the show, and it's just something, I think if you know that going in, it's more enjoyable, so that you're not just like, well, what the hell is happening here? There's gonna be a bit of that. I'm still really enjoying it in season 2, but like, for me, the best executed and most enjoyable storyline is that of what is called Empire. And you've met Empire, I assume,
of course,
3 episodes in. That was like 2 weeks ago for me, and my memory doesn't go back that far. But my original pitch for the show was like, and I think this might have been off microphone to Barrett, I can't remember, but I was like, the thing that's the coolest part of the show to me, I think it was on the podcast, maybe Patreon. Coolest part of the show to me is how the Emperor is actually 3 people that are clones of the same man.
Yeah.
So they're all the same man, except there's 3 of them, and one of them is old, and his name is Dusk. One of them is
Brother Dusk.
In the middle, Brother Day, and then the youngest one is Brother Dawn.
Right.
And that was the hook for me. Like, I was like, whoa, this is cool. Never seen that subject matter really broached that way. Never dealt with like the cloning thing. And I love that storyline. The other half of the show is the storyline that's kind of, it's just difficult to grasp. A lot of it's about mathematics. A lot of it is there's a ton of time that gets covered There's AI shit. There's sentient stuff. There's every sci-fi element you could possibly imagine packed into this thing.
Yeah. Well, once I'll be honest. When I started the show, I didn't realize that it was based off of books written by Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
I've heard his books referred to as quote unquote texts, like -er texts, which I take to mean they are, I called him one of the godfathers of sci-fi. He essentially like established a lot of the science fiction tropes that have been pulled apart and put back together again and reused and recycled and rehashed a million times over now in popular culture and in media. So it's not surprising to hear that like this show essentially like touches every sci-fi button you can hit.
Yeah, and apparently the television show Foundation on Apple TV Plus like wildly deviates from his books, from the source material, which is apparently it's a trilogy of books and a series of novellas. Okay, so that sounds a lot like what?
Game of Thrones?
Song of Ice and Fire, yeah. Where there's a I guess it's not a trilogy, but
a series of books and then a bunch of other like
small
side
source
texts.
material texts. Yeah. So a quote from Mashable: "The Foundation books are collections of interlocking stories and novellas whose events span hundreds of years, not to mention an entire galaxy."
Yeah.
And that is where the show, it kind of suffers from a lot of the same things that Wheel of Time suffers from in terms of having like a whole bunch of source material spanning a whole bunch of time that is really difficult to do justice to on a TV series. And it's one of the things that, like, regardless of the failure of a finale, that Game of Thrones did so well, right? Mm-hmm. It took this massive, sprawling story about all these different characters that, quite frankly, George R.R. Martin found a simple way to break down for the books, where each chapter is from the point of view of one character. Like, you're on an Arya chapter, you're on a Ned Stark chapter, you're on a Jon Snow chapter. Makes it easier to follow. That is apparently why the show deviated so much from the Foundation book source material, because... It's insanely complex and crazy complicated. It's just a difficult thing to bring to the screen. Having watched an entire, season and a half now, and by the way, seasons 1 and 2 are fully available on Apple TV Plus. They're finished. They've done a great job. Like, it never gets boring at all. There have been points where I'm like, wait, what? Where it's just big brain shit that is above my pay grade, where I'm like, I don't know if there's any amount of rewatching that would help me understand.
I will say this, as far as the now I'm clearly, you've said that it gains complexity even, and I'm only 3 episodes in, but the show leads with a lot of like math talk.
Yeah,
that the math itself doesn't actually matter. It's more of the concept of the math.
Sure, which I can understand.
And what I've kind of like, I've already started doing this through 3 episodes, is like I'm trying not to miss the forest for the trees, because even though some of it gets really heady and you're dealing with some big brain stuff, it's like if you kind of just like keep, look straight ahead, it's mostly like big picture things.
Absolutely.
You can kind of dilute it down into like what's important, the strain that you need to know. And there's a lot of kind of surrounding fluff around it in a very sciencey, cool way that, like, if you want to, you can put on subtitles and then rewatch every scene 6 times to make sure that you're not missing anything.
Right.
And so far, I've avoided doing that. I've just been like, I'll figure it out. Like, it's going to be fine. And so far, it has been.
Well, and I think that's what they did a great job with. It's there's surface level big picture points that you need to be able to grasp that I think everyone who watches is able to grasp. And then there's the larger, headier, mathematics driven shit that, like, if you're me and you're not a numbers guy, you're like, well, there is just no chance in hell I am going to understand that. But the concept of it is really, really cool. And this isn't really a spoiler. It almost provides you, it's like you can look at the math and just be like, well, it's prophecy.
Yes, totally, 100%.
The math is God in a way, where it's like that's what guides the entire universe, and that is something that even as like a religious or spiritual person, I think hits.
It's 100% one of the things that's like really grabbing me is like the connection to math and religion.
Yeah,
basically.
It's very, very cool. They've done a great job. It's definitely worth watching. I'm not going to do what I did with the Wheel of Time, because I feel like I went way out on a limb and now I kind of regret it, where I was like, this is the best fantasy show since Game of Thrones. I still kind of stand by that statement, but the further I've gotten, like with every passing episode, I'm just like, okay, what the hell?
I mean, look, like I fully acknowledge that. Like, I am way more into sci-fi than I am into fantasy, and Wheel of Time is very high fantasy. So if you are not into high fantasy, but you are into sci-fi, you're going to find a much easier way into this show. And I also, this is something that Laura said when I was just talking about how much more I liked this than Wheel of Time, and I think she's on the same page, but like, you brought up Game of Thrones. This show also has like a little politics in it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, big time.
Right? And so there are other things to kind of like, yes, I love all the kind of the cool sci-fi stuff, but there's also some of that more like, this is a cool political setup, like where there's structure and, you know, worlds warring and the empire thing that's happening, and like, so there's other kind of things to latch onto as well.
Absolutely.
If you don't care about like, you know, star bridges.
Yeah.
But the star bridge is super dope.
Dude, I mean, that's, if I had to give the two biggest things about this show that are like, that I think will grab people, one of them is definitely the pitch of like the mathematical prophecy. And the way that all plays out. That is really cool. I think anybody who watches can understand it, even if you suck at math like I do, because they're not like getting into the numbers.
No, they never like show you like an equation on the screen.
No, you don't have to deal with any of that. It's just conceptually, like, you know that numbers are sort of behind everything and anything that happens in the world on some level.
Yeah.
And it applies that to history and the ability to basically see into the future. There's that, and then the other side of it that I love is like I said, the Empire stuff, and that ties into all the political things that Barrett is talking about as well. Like, what does this government body look like? How much are they in charge of? It is a galaxy, as we said, not like one country or like one world even. It's thousands of planets, and that sounds kind of intimidating. They do a really good job of giving you like, not too much. You're not having to bite off too much in terms of like going to other planets, meeting other galaxies, finding out about all the races. But they give you enough to also let you feel the scope of this thing. So it is very well done on that level. Like when I was looking into this online, especially preceding our conversation today on the podcast, I am aware that there is a lot of negative feedback from book readers.
Okay. Yeah. Always is, though.
Yes, but this is an extreme version of it, and I don't think it's warranted. I don't think it's fair, and it's a time where I'm just cautioning our listeners, like, don't let any negative reviews from book readers push you away from trying this show, because I like, look, some books, you have to massively change what occurs in them to be able to adapt them to TV or to movies, and this is certainly the case as it applies to Foundation. So, I've really liked it, man. Obviously, I'm blown through it, like you said. Barrett's now 3 episodes deep. We'll see. I guess we can check back in when you finish season 1, probably.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll be checking in next week. Probably when I finish season 1. That probably makes sense.
And until then, let us know if you get into it, if you enjoy it, what you think of it, if you think we should cover it in a more substantial manner, episode by episode, like we do with a lot of shows. I've been liking it a lot. So, yeah, and speaking of sci-fi, rumors that a Westworld movie is currently in development have apparently been swirling in Hollywood to some extent and started to pop up on my internet radar. Okay. I just wanted to say, I don't think we need this. Look, first of all, the television show on HBO, Westworld, was based on like a film already. There's a movie from like the 70s called Westworld. All right. This is like kind of a remake type of situation. And as I understand it, I think Jonathan Nolan would still be attached to it.
I'm sure.
Which I'm gotten to the point where I'm like, it's Christopher Nolan's less talented brother. Because this is like, let it go, man. This cannot be the only thing. He was also behind Peripheral. Him and Lisa Joy did Peripheral on Amazon, which got canceled. And it's like, they're like, oh, God, well, let's just go back to the IP that did work for a season. And that's where my argument ends. It's that if you need Westworld content, look, season 1 on HBO was excellent TV. And if you need a Westworld story, just go rewatch that and then stop. Don't watch any of the other seasons. Just season 1, and then move on with your life. Because that was a very, very, very well done version of this sci-fi story that is Westworld. And I don't think anybody is going to be able to top that in a movie. And again, there is a movie that already exists. So anyway, that just obviously came across my radar the second that there started being articles written about it. People were tweeting it at me, and I was just, because we used to do a podcast for Westworld called Freeze All Motor Functions, and I was just like, you've got to be freaking shitting me. This is such a waste of time and money. This is like 20 minutes after the news about the writer's strike ended. I was like, oh my God, come on.
I guess maybe Jonathan and Lisa would like a chance to wrap up their story. Maybe it feels like it's something that's what it feels like. It would replace basically a final season for them that they kind of thought that they were going to get and then they didn't get.
Maybe that's right. I would still advise against it, but anyway,
potentially easier to produce and then distribute than like getting like another streamer or network to like be like, sure, we'll give you one more season.
Well, especially considering what we've talked about the past couple weeks, that there is no shortage of sci-fi or fantasy stuff on these big streamers at the moment. There is so much of it, and I'm not sure there needs to be any more for right now. Anyway, big news today was obviously that the writer's strike ended. We are very stoked about this. Congratulations to everybody involved in that strike and in the guild. That is huge, and I know that was a grueling 145 or 140 plus days of no work and fear and anxiety, and it's over. You did it. So hopefully next week the actors wrap things up and we can move on for at least a few years from ever having to talk about this shit again, because it has made me want to pull my eyes from their sockets.
I mean,
week after week.
typically, they just agree to the terms again in 3 years. They say, okay, that one was good, and they just run it back, I think, is generally what happens. Or it's a brief discussion, negotiation, a few things change, and they keep it moving. But every I don't know, about every 15, 20 years or so, it seems like that's when it's like...
There's a big blow up.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. If you're looking for more OCC, we do an exclusive ad-free episode every week driven by hotline calls from the Clam Fam and Mollusk Militia on patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. Subscribe now on Patreon for as little as $5 a month to support our show and enjoy so much more exclusive OCC content ad-free. When you join, you immediately gain access to our entire backlog of episodes, including all of the collections I referenced at the top of the show, our bonus coverage of Silo, Succession, The Last of Us, House of the Dragon, The White Lotus, and of course, our entire companion podcast for HBO's classic crime drama, The Sopranos, friendly to both first-timers and rewatchers. Patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. We'd appreciate it if you'd continue to support our sponsors by using our dedicated URLs and codes. Today we had birddogs.com/dragon, code DRAGON when you check out for that free Bird Dogs tech hat with your order. If you're an F1 fan, check out Bolin Media's premier F1 programming, Formula Bone, at youtube.com/@FormulaBone, where Jared J-Bone Borislow does a preview and recap for every F1 race all season long, minus the upcoming race this weekend and the one that follows that, as the man J-Bone is on his honeymoon. Finally, for more from me, check out the Ross Bolin podcast wherever podcasts are played. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WRBolin. Mr. Dudley, where can the people follow you?
Oh, check me out on Instagram at Barrett Dudley.
And go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some merch. Thanks for being here with us today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, peace.